Montana. Winter, 1886. Snow on every peak. Silence on every road. A small white church sits at the edge of a cliff. The cliff drops 300 feet to black river stones. The wind moves through the pine. The pine remembers. Outside the church, fresh footprints lead to the edge and stop. A torn piece of dark wool flutters on a low branch. A woman's glove lies in the snow. Empty. They will say she jumped. They will write it down. They will close the file. But the snow tells a different story. 2 sets of footprints came to the edge. Only one set walked away. She was 8 months along. She had a letter in her pocket. She had a name she was about to speak. A train whistles in the distance, coming west, carrying someone who does not yet know that she is the next one. Cold January wind cut through Adeline Whitmore's thin wool coat as she stepped off the train at Cold Creek Station, Montana, January 10th, 1886. The sign nailed to the platform creaked in the wind. She read it twice, because she could not believe she had actually arrived. Her gloves were thin, her boots were thinner. The snow had soaked through both. 24 years old, a seamstress from Boston, a girl who had never traveled west of Pennsylvania. And here she was, standing on a wooden platform in a town she had only seen in a newspaper advertisement 4 months ago. The advertisement was folded in her pocket. She had read it so many times the paper had gone soft. Wife wanted. Silver Pine Ridge, Montana territory. Honorable man. Will pay all medical expenses for suitable bride. References required. Inquiries to C. Callahan, care of Cold Creek Post Office. C. Callahan. Just an initial, just a name. No photograph, no description. She had signed the contract anyway. Because Nana Margaret was dying, and the doctor in Boston had said $400 would buy 6 more months. And Adeline did not have $400. She had 17. Now she had a husband she had never met, a town she had never seen, and 1 suitcase containing everything she owned in the world. She waited. Nobody came. The station master locked up at 4 o'clock. He looked at her with something between pity and irritation. Then he pointed across the street to a lopsided wooden building with smoke curling from the chimney. Boarding house, he said. Mrs. Polk. Tell her you'll pay when your man arrives. Adeline nodded, because she had no other choice. Mrs. Polk was a thick woman with iron-gray hair and a mouth that turned down at the corners as if it had forgotten how to do anything else. She looked at Adeline's signed contract. She looked at the name C. Callahan, and her face changed. You're his. His what? The new one. Adeline did not understand. I'm sorry. Mrs. Polk wiped her hands on her apron, slowly, as if she needed time to decide what to say. Then she said it anyway. You're the second one, girl. The first one died. The room went quiet. The fire crackled. Somewhere upstairs a board groaned. Died how? They said she jumped off the cliff behind the church. But she didn't jump. Mrs. Polk leaned closer. Her breath smelled of coffee and onions. Rose Callahan didn't jump. You remember that. When you're up there at that ranch, you remember that I told you. 3 days passed. 3 days of cold tea and cold biscuits and colder looks from the women who came to gossip in Mrs. Polk's parlor. They stared at Adeline. They whispered. They did not whisper quietly enough. The Italian girl, the Catholics, the replacement. She wrote letters to Nana Margaret. She did not send them, because postage cost 3 cents she did not have. On the 4th night the door opened, and 3 men walked in. The room fell silent. The way rooms only fall silent when something dangerous has entered. The way a forest goes quiet before a wolf passes through. 3 men, tall, bearded, trail dust on their coats, snow melting on the brims of their hats. They moved the way men move when they are not afraid of anything in a room, because nothing in the room is more dangerous than they are. The oldest one stepped forward, 6'2", maybe 6'3". Dark brown hair shot through with the first threads of silver at the temples. A scar running from his right eyebrow down to his cheekbone. Gray eyes the color of storm clouds. He looked at her. He did not smile. He did not nod. He simply looked. The way a man might look at a horse he was thinking about buying. Miss Whitmore. Yes, Rourke Callahan. I apologize for the delay. The pass was closed. She did not know what to say. So she said nothing, which seemed to suit him fine. The second brother stepped forward. Slightly shorter, lighter hair, a face that had room for a smile in it. He took off his hat. Holt Callahan, ma'am. Welcome to Montana. The third brother did not take off his hat. He looked at her from under the brim, with eyes that were not unkind, but were not warm either. Briggs. That was all he said. Briggs. Like the name itself was a sentence. Rourke paid Mrs. Polk in silver coins. He picked up Adeline's suitcase. He turned for the door. We ride out in 10 minutes. She followed him, because she had nothing else to follow. The wagon was waiting outside. 2 horses, heavy blankets, a canvas cover stretched over the back. Holt helped her up. His hand was warm even through her gloves. Briggs did not help. Rourke took the reins. The road climbed. The town disappeared behind them. The world turned white. 3 hours. That was what they had said the ride would take. 3 hours through a forest that grew darker with every mile. Snow on every branch. The wagon wheels crunching. The horses breathing steam. She sat between Rourke and Holt on the front bench. Briggs rode his own horse behind them. She could hear his hoofbeats. She could not see him. Nobody spoke for the first hour. Then Holt leaned across her toward Rourke. He spoke in a low voice. He spoke in Italian. Brother, are you sure about this one? She does not have the look, Rourke answered without turning his head. In Italian. I am not looking for Rose. I am looking for peace. Holt was quiet for a moment. Then, Mama would have liked her, if Mama were still here. Mama is not here. Adeline's hands tightened in her lap. She understood every word. She had grown up in a house where her grandmother spoke nothing else, where the smell of basil and the sound of Dante read aloud were as familiar as her own name. She should have stayed quiet. She should have let them think she was a Boston girl who knew nothing. But something in her broke, quietly, without permission. I am not here to replace anyone, she said, in Italian, soft as a whisper, soft as a confession. The wagon kept moving, but Rourke's hands on the reins went still. Holt turned to look at her. His mouth was open, just slightly. Rourke turned his head. For the first time since she had met him, he looked at her the way a man looks at something he had not noticed was there. You speak Italian. My grandmother is from Florence. How much did you understand? All of it. Silence. The kind of silence that has weight. The kind of silence that decides things. Then Rourke clicked his tongue and the horses moved again. He did not speak the rest of the ride, but something had shifted. She could feel it. The way the air changes before a storm. Silver Pine Ridge appeared at dusk. A house of honey-colored timber and river stone. 2 stories, a wraparound porch, smoke from 3 chimneys, windows lit warm against the cold. Behind it, a barn the size of a small church. Beyond that, the dark line of the forest. Above everything, the mountains, snow-capped, watching. It was the most beautiful place Adeline had ever seen. She had not expected beautiful. A woman stood on the porch waiting, round face, gray hair tucked under a kerchief, a woolen shawl wrapped twice around her shoulders. She came down the steps with both hands held out. Come in, you will freeze." Adeline let herself be pulled into a kitchen that smelled like baked bread and rosemary and wood smoke. The woman took her wet coat, took her wet gloves, sat her down by the iron stove, pressed a tin cup of broth into her hands. "I am Hattie. 27 years I have kept this house. Now drink, now warm, then we talk." The broth was hot. The bench was warm. Adeline closed her eyes for just a moment, just one. When she opened them, 2 children were standing in the doorway, staring. A girl, perhaps 6, dark braids, a serious face. Behind her, a smaller boy, perhaps 4. Sandy hair sticking up in every direction. Both barefoot on the cold wooden floor. The girl was Posy. The boy was Wren. Hattie introduced them with a brisk pat on each small head. They were not Callahan children, Hattie explained later. Their parents had been neighbors. Their parents had died. Wren walked across the kitchen without waiting for permission. He stopped 2 feet from Adeline. He tilted his head. "Are you our new mama?" Adeline opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. She did not know what answer was safe. Rourke saved her. He had come in behind her. He knelt down to Wren's eye level. His knees creaked. "This is Miss Adeline. She will live here. She will care for you. But is she our mama? She is whatever she decides to be." Wren considered this. Then he nodded as if a contract had been signed. Then he climbed onto Adeline's lap as if he had known her his whole life. She did not breathe for a moment, because she had not held a child since she was a child herself. Posy stayed in the doorway, watching, calculating, not coming closer. Hattie clapped her hands. Supper, wash, bed. That night, Hattie led Adeline up a wide wooden staircase to a room on the 2nd floor. A 4-poster bed, a washstand, a small fireplace already lit, a window that looked out onto the dark line of pine trees. Hattie turned at the door before she left. She lowered her voice. "Child, listen. 3 things. Yes. The 3rd door from the end of this hallway. Do not go in." That was Rose's room. Adeline nodded. The book on the library shelf with the brown leather cover. "Don't move it. He notices." She nodded again. "And if the dogs bark at night, you stay in bed. You do not go to the window. You do not open the door, even if you hear children crying. You stay in bed." "Why?" Hattie did not answer. She closed the door behind her. Adeline sat on the edge of the bed. She did not cry. She had used up her crying years ago. She just sat, listening. The wind, the fire, the slow creak of the house, the sound of a man's boots on the floor below. Walking, stopping, walking again. She thought about Nana Margaret. She thought about the contract she had signed. She thought about Rose Callahan, who did not jump. And she thought, just before she fell asleep, that she had walked into something much larger than a marriage. The next morning, Rourke called her into his study. She had not slept well. She had heard footsteps in the hallway around 3 o'clock. She had stayed in bed, as instructed. The study smelled of pipe tobacco and leather. A wall of books, a desk by the window, a wood stove in the corner. He stood behind the desk in a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He gestured to a chair. She sat. He pushed a stack of papers across the desk toward her. "What is this? Read it." She picked up the first page. It was her name, her birth certificate. Adeline Marie Whitmore. Born May 4th, 1861. Boston, Massachusetts. The next page was her mother's death certificate. Lucia Whitmore. Consumption, 1873. The next page was her father's death certificate. Salvatore Whitmore. Wagon accident, 1865. She was 4 years old. The next page was a Boston police report, filed by Adeline Whitmore. October 1883. Against a man named Thomas Garrick. Photographs of bruises on her wrists and throat. Her hands began to shake. She set the paper down, picked it up again. Set it down. How? I had you investigated. How dare you, Miss Whitmore? How dare you? Her voice rose. She did not care. These are private. These are mine. You had no right. I had every right. I do not marry strangers. Then you should not have advertised, for one. The words came out sharper than she intended. She braced, because in her experience, sharp words led to sharp hands. But Rourke did not move. He did not raise his voice. He sat down on the edge of the desk. He looked at her with those gray storm eyes, and he said something she did not expect. "You are right." "What? You are right. I had no right. I apologize." She stared at him. "Then why?" "Because I needed to know if you were running from something, or running to something, and which did your detective tell you?" "Both." She looked away, out the window, where the snow had started again. "Why me?" she said. "There are 100 women who answered your advertisement. Why mine?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into a drawer. He pulled out a small bundle of letters tied with string. The string was old. The paper was yellow. He set them on the desk between them. "Because of these." "What are they?" "My father's letters, to a man named Vittorio Whitmore. He was my father's closest friend. They served together at Gettysburg, 1863. Vittorio saved my father's life. They invested in this land together. They swore that if their children ever found each other, they would not let them part." She felt the room shift, tilt, right itself. "Vittorio Whitmore was my grandfather." "I know. He died in 1865. "I know. Of cholera." "No." She looked up. Her mouth went dry. "He did not die of cholera, Miss Whitmore. Neither did your father. They were murdered the same year, within 4 months of each other, by the same man, for the same reason." "What reason?" "That is what I have been trying to find out for 10 years. She sat very still, because if she moved, she might shatter. "Why did you not tell me before?" "Because I needed to be sure you were not part of it. Now I am sure." He stood up. He walked around the desk. He stopped just close enough that she could smell pine soap and wood smoke on his shirt. "You can leave," he said. "I will pay the medical bills for your grandmother regardless. I will buy you a return ticket. You owe me nothing. The choice is yours." She thought about it for about 3 seconds. Then she thought about Nana Margaret in the boarding house in Boston. coughing into a handkerchief, whispering names in Italian in her sleep. "I am not leaving," she said. "I want to know who killed them." A muscle moved in his jaw. "Just once. Then we have work to do." She did not know it, but somewhere on a train heading east from Helena, a letter from her grandmother was already on its way. A letter that would change everything. The first week passed in small adjustments. She learned the house. The kitchen with its cast-iron stove that took 2 hands to open. The dining room with its long pine table. The library where Rourke kept his father's books. The wide front porch where the brothers cleaned their rifles each evening, as if cleaning them were a kind of prayer. She learned the people. Hattie, who ran everything and admitted to nothing. Holt, who whistled while he chopped wood and slipped extra biscuits to the children when he thought no one was looking. Briggs, who said almost nothing but who watched everything. Posey, who still would not come within 4 feet of her. Wren, who refused to be more than 4 feet away. She learned Rourke. Slowly, in small pieces, like a puzzle missing most of its corners. He woke before dawn. He rode the fence line every morning regardless of weather. He read at the kitchen table while drinking coffee black enough to stain glass. He spoke to the horses in Italian when he thought no one was listening. He spoke to his brothers in English. He spoke to Adeline almost not at all. But he watched her. She could feel it. Across the table at supper, across the porch in the evening, across the yard when she went to fetch water. He watched her the way a man watches a fire he is afraid will go out. On the 3rd morning she dropped a china bowl. It shattered on the kitchen floor. She froze. Her body did what it had learned to do in 3 years with Thomas Garrick. Her shoulders went up. Her chin went down. She braced. Rourke walked into the kitchen. He looked at the bowl. He looked at her. He knelt down. He picked up the pieces. He wrapped them in a dishcloth. "Where I came from," she whispered. This would have meant a beating. He stopped moving. He did not look up. When he spoke, his voice was low and even. "Where you are now. It just means a broken bowl." He stood. He set the dishcloth on the counter. He walked out. She stayed where she was for a long time, because she did not trust her legs. Posey was watching from the doorway. Posey had seen the whole thing. Posey did not move. But that night at supper, Posey sat next to Adeline, for the first time, without being asked. It was small, but it counted. On the 5th day, Holt began to teach her things. How to lay a fire in mountain wind that would not blow it out. How to bank coals at night so they would still burn at dawn. How to tell when bread was rising correctly by pressing it with 1 finger. How to hold a rifle. How to load a rifle. How not to be afraid of a rifle. "You do not have to shoot anyone, ma'am," he said, "but you should know how. This is Montana." She nodded. She held the rifle. Her hand stopped shaking after the 3rd try. Rourke watched from the barn door. He did not come closer. He did not speak. But when she went to bed that night, the rifle was leaning against the inside of her bedroom door. Loaded, safe, ready. She did not need it. She slept better, knowing it was there. On the 6th day, she discovered the book. She had been dusting the library. Hattie had said the library was hers to organize if she wished. Most of the books were in English, a few in Latin, 1 in French. But on the 3rd shelf from the bottom, tucked behind a row of agricultural manuals, she found it. A small book, brown leather, hand-stitched, Italian poetry, Dante's Inferno, with an English translation written in tight, precise handwriting on the facing pages. She opened it. The leather creaked. The pages smelled of dried lavender and old smoke. On the inside cover, 2 names, 2 signatures, both in faded brown ink. Eamon Callahan, Vittorio Whitmore. Beneath the signatures, a date, June 12, 1863, 3 weeks before Gettysburg. Beneath the D, one sentence in Italian: "If our children ever find each other, let them not let go." She closed the book. Slowly, she put it back, exactly as she had found it. She did not tell Rourke, not yet, because she did not yet trust what the book meant. That night she dreamed of her grandfather, a man she had never met. He was standing in a field of long grass. He was holding half a book. He was waiting for someone to bring him the other half. She woke at 3 in the morning. The dogs were barking. She remembered Hattie's instruction: "Stay in bed. Do not go to the window. Do not open the door." She stayed in bed. She did not go to the window. She did not open the door. But she heard them. Footsteps in the hallway. 2 sets. Heavy, trying to be quiet, failing. She heard a door open. The 3rd door from the end of the hallway. Rose's room. Then she heard a sound she did not understand. A man weeping, not crying, weeping. The kind of sound a man only makes when he believes no one can hear him. It was not Rourke. Rourke did not make sounds like that. She did not think Rourke had made sounds in years. It was Briggs. She lay very still. She listened until the weeping stopped, until the door closed again, until the footsteps retreated. Then she fell asleep with tears she did not remember crying drying on her face. The next morning at breakfast, nobody mentioned it. But Briggs looked at her differently. He looked at her the way a man looks at someone who has accidentally seen him naked. Then he nodded once, very slightly. She nodded back. Something had been agreed. She did not know what. On the morning of the 10th day, Rourke saddled 2 horses and asked her to ride with him. She had never been on a horse. Holt had to lift her up. She felt foolish. Rourke noticed. He did not say anything. He just rode slowly enough that she could keep her seat. They rode for an hour, through pine forest, across a frozen creek, up a slope that gave way to a meadow ringed in birch trees. At the far end of the meadow, 2 graves. The first headstone read Rose Callahan, beloved wife, 1880 to 1883. The second headstone was smaller. There was no name on it, just one line: "He never had a chance." Adeline put her hand to her mouth. Rourke stood with his hat in his hands. The wind moved his hair. The wind moved nothing else. She was carrying a child, he said. 8 months along. She was found at the bottom of the cliff behind the church. The sheriff ruled it a suicide. You do not believe it. No. What do you believe? He was quiet. He looked at the small headstone with no name. He looked at it for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was lower than she had ever heard it. I believe. She found something. I believe she was about to tell me. I believe someone pushed her before she could. Who? That is the question I have been trying to answer for 2 years. Why are you telling me this now? He turned to look at her. The wind was cold, but his eyes were warmer than she expected. Because I did not marry you to replace her. I want you to know that. I read about you. I learned about you. And what I saw was a woman who had survived something. The way I am trying to survive something. She did not know what to say, so she said nothing. He stepped forward. He took her gloved hand in his. Just for a moment. Just one heartbeat. Then he let go. We should ride back. The light is going. They rode back in silence. But it was a different silence. The silence of 2 people who have agreed on something without speaking it aloud. That Sunday, they went to church in Cold Creek. Adeline wore the only dress she owned that did not have a patch in it, a dark blue wool with a high collar. Hattie braided her hair. Rourke wore his good coat. The brothers wore theirs. The children rode in the back of the wagon under a heavy blanket. The town was already gathering when they arrived. Adeline could feel the eyes the moment she stepped down from the wagon. 20 pairs. 30. Every woman in Cold Creek, looking. She kept her chin up. She walked beside Rourke. She let Wren hold her hand. The church was small, white clapboard, a bell in the steeple, a graveyard around the back where the ground sloped down toward a cliff. The cliff behind the church, the cliff where Rose Callahan had been found. Adeline tried not to look at it. She failed. A woman stepped into her path before she reached the church doors. She was perhaps in her early 50s, tall, thin, wearing a dress of deep red velvet that must have cost more than the entire Callahan wagon. Her hair was the color of iron. Her eyes were the color of pale gravel. Mrs. Callahan, I presume. Yes, Cordelia. Blackwood Wheeler. My husband is the mayor of Cold Creek. My brother owns most of the mining claims in this county. We are pleased you have come so far to join our little community. The words were pleasant. The voice was not. Thank you. Italian, are you? Yes. Catholic. Yes. Cordelia smiled. The smile did not reach her eyes. This is a Protestant community. Dear, I am sure your husband has explained we have certain expectations about children, about observance, about proper conduct for a wife in our valley. Adeline did not answer, and of course Cordelia continued, leaning closer, lowering her voice. You do know about poor Rose. The cliff is right there. So convenient. I do hope you fare better. Foreign women have such a hard time in our mountains.
Rourke moved beside her. Adeline could feel him gather himself, the way a wolf gathers itself before it springs. But Adeline put her hand on his sleeve, lightly, just enough. Then she looked Cordelia Blackwood Wheeler full in the face. She did not raise her voice. She did not lower her eyes. Madam, I am sure you mean well, but you are standing between me and the house of God. Please step aside. The town went silent. The whole churchyard, 20 women, 30, all listening.
Cordelia did not move for one long second. Then she did. She stepped back, stiffly, as if her own knees had betrayed her. Adeline walked past her, into the church, with Rogue beside her and Wren still holding her hand and Posey hurrying to catch up. Behind her, she did not see Cordelia Blackwood Wheeler's face. She did not see the way the older woman's mouth had thinned. She did not see the way Cordelia's gaze followed her up the church aisle, not with contempt, with fear. Because Cordelia Blackwood Wheeler knew something that Adeline did not yet know. Cordelia knew exactly who had pushed Rose Callahan from the cliff behind the church. Cordelia knew because she had been there. And Cordelia knew that this new wife, this Italian girl with the steady chin, was going to find out. The service was long. Adeline did not hear most of it. She sat in the pew between Rourke and Posey. She let Wren fall asleep against her shoulder. She watched the candles burn down.
When the congregation rose to sing, she rose with them. When the congregation knelt to pray, she knelt with them. She did not know the Protestant hymns. She mouthed the words she did not know. After the service, Mrs. Iona Hartley approached her, a small woman, gray-haired, kind eyes. She pressed a small folded paper into Adeline's gloved hand without looking at her. Then she walked on, as if nothing had happened. Adeline did not open the paper until she was in the wagon riding home. The paper said, in a careful, old-fashioned hand, "I was Rose's friend. She left something for you. Come to the back of my bakery on Tuesday at 3. Tell no one." She closed her fist around the paper. She did not show it to Rourke. Not yet, because Rourke had not yet shown her everything either. She could feel it, the way a tree can feel a storm 2 valleys away. That night, Adeline could not sleep. She lay in the 4-poster bed with the rifle leaning against the door and the small book of Dante hidden beneath her pillow. She thought about her grandfather Vittorio, murdered in 1865. She thought about her father Salvatore, murdered 4 months later. She thought about Eamon Callahan, murdered 1875. She thought about Rose Callahan, murdered 1883, 4 deaths, 3 decades. The same hand. She did not know whose hand. Not yet. But somewhere on the road from Boston, a letter from her grandmother was traveling west. And somewhere in the Cold Creek Bakery, a friend of Rose Callahan was waiting to give her something. And somewhere in a fine house in Cold Creek, a man named Silas Blackwood was reading a telegram from a detective in Boston. The telegram informed him that the new Callahan bride was the granddaughter of Vittoria Whitmore. Silas read the telegram 3 times. Then he folded it in half. He folded it again. He held it over the candle on his desk until it caught fire. He watched it burn until there was nothing left but ash on his blotter. Then he opened his desk drawer. He took out a pistol. He laid it on the blotter beside the ash. He smiled. The wind picked up outside the Callahan ranch. Snow began to fall. The dogs in the yard did not bark. Adeline did not yet know why she could not sleep. She only knew that she could not. She lit a candle. She took out the small book of Dante. She opened it to a page at random. She read by candlelight in her grandmother's language. Nel mezzo del cammin di nostra vita mi ritrovai per una selva oscura. In the middle of the journey of our life, I found myself in a dark forest. She closed the book. She blew out the candle. She did not yet know that she was the journey and the forest and the only one who could find the way through. But she would, before the snow melted. Tuesday came slowly. Adeline counted the hours because she had to do something with her mind besides circle the same questions. Who killed Rose? Who killed Eamon? Who killed her grandfather? Who killed her father? 4 names, 1 hand. She did not know whose. But Mrs. Iona Hartley knew something. And Mrs. Hartley was waiting at the back of a bakery on Tuesday at 3. Monday, she dropped 2 more things. A cup, a spoon. Her hands were not steady, Hattie noticed. Hattie did not comment. Hattie simply set down a plate of biscuits and said nothing, which was a kind of mercy Adeline had not expected. Monday afternoon, Rourke saddled his horse and rode out toward the lower pasture. He was gone for hours. Holt was repairing the chicken coop. Briggs was somewhere in the back 40 splitting rails. The children were napping. Adeline went to the library. She closed the door behind her, quietly. She took the small book of Dante from the 3rd shelf from the bottom. She opened it to the inside cover. She read the 2 signatures again. Eamon Callahan, Vittorio Whitmore, 1863. She turned the page. The first poem, Dante's opening lines. She turned the next page, and the next, and the next, until she noticed. On page 17, a single letter was circled in pencil, very faint. A pencil mark a person would only see if they were looking. The letter S. She turned to page 24. Another letter circled. The letter O. Page 31. A letter T. She felt her breath leave her chest. She did not have paper. She tore a flyleaf from the back of an old farming journal. She took a pencil from Rourke's desk. She began to write down each circled letter as she found it. S-O-T-T-O. Sotto, the Italian word for under. L-A-La, the article. P-I-E-T-R-A, Pietra, stone. She kept going, hands trembling now, page after page. The letters formed a sentence. She wrote it down. She read it twice. She read it 3 times. Sotto la pietra del focolare di sua sorella. Under the stone of the hearth of her sister. Her sister. Rose's sister. Rose had told her sister where she had hidden something, and the sister did not live at Silver Pine. The sister lived. Where? Adeline did not know. Not yet. She closed the book. She put it back exactly where she had found it. She folded the flyleaf with the sentence on it. She slid it inside her bodice, against her ribs, where no one could see. Then she walked back to the kitchen as if nothing had happened, as if she had not just found the message that Rose Callahan had left for whoever came next. Tuesday morning the weather turned, a sleeting half-rain that froze before it hit the ground, the kind of weather that ruined trips into town. Adeline watched it through the kitchen window with a sinking feeling. Because the wagon could not make it through. Because she could not get to the bakery. Because Mrs. Iona Hartley would think Adeline had refused to come. Rourke came in from the barn shaking water from his hat. He took in the weather. He took in her face. He said nothing. She turned away from the window. She busied herself with bread dough. She kneaded harder than she needed to. Then Holt walked in carrying an armful of firewood. He glanced at the window. He glanced at her hands. He set the firewood down. Town day got ruined. I had hoped to go. For what? She hesitated, because she did not yet know how much to share. Not even with Holt, who was easier to like than Rourke and easier to talk to than Briggs. Mrs. Hartley. She offered to teach me sourdough. Holt looked at her. His eyes were very pale blue, very steady. Ma'am, there is a back trail, cut by my father. It comes out behind the bakery. A horse can do it. Even today, you would take me. I would take you. Rourke will not need to know if he does not ask. Their eyes held, just long enough to make an agreement, just short enough that nothing was said aloud. An hour later, Adeline was on a horse for the second time in her life, riding behind Holt through a forest of black pines and ice. The cold cut through her coat. The horse's breath came in clouds. The back of the bakery smelled of yeast and wood smoke. A small green door, a single window with a single candle. Mrs. Iona Hartley opened the door before they knocked. Quickly, she pulled Adeline inside. Holt stayed with the horses. The back room of the bakery was warm. Flour on the table, a barrel of salt in one corner, a small frame picture on the wall of a young woman with red hair laughing into the camera. Adeline recognized the laugh before she recognized the face, because there was a portrait in the Callahan hallway with that same laugh. Rose, sit, quickly. We do not have much time. He has eyes everywhere. Who? Silas Blackwood. He pays the postmaster. He pays the station master. He pays the priest at the Methodist church. He pays everyone he can pay. The ones he cannot pay, he watches. Mrs. Hartley moved to a small chest in the corner. She opened it. She lifted out a layer of cloth. Beneath the cloth, a small wooden box. She set the box on the table between them. Rose gave me this 2 days before she died. Adeline stared at it. She did not touch it. She could not yet. What is inside? I do not know. I never opened it, she said. If anything happens to me, keep this. Give it to the next woman. Not to Rourke, not to his brothers. The next woman. She will know what to do. Why not Rourke? Because Rose said, he will go straight to Silas, and he will die. The same as she died. The same as his father died. The next woman. The one with the language, the one who can read what I left. Adeline's hand went to the folded paper inside her bodice. The sentence in Italian. under the stone of the hearth of her sister. She looked at Mrs. Hartley. Rose had a sister, Delphine, younger than her, lives in Helena now, widowed last winter. Her husband was my nephew Aldo. He kept the bakery. She keeps it now. Helena, 2 days by train. Adeline reached for the wooden box, slowly. The wood was smooth. The lid had been worn pale by a thumb, by many thumbs, by the thumb of a woman who had opened and closed this box many times before she gave it away. She did not open it, not yet. She put it inside the deep pocket of her coat. She buttoned the pocket. Mrs. Hartley, why now? Why give it to me now? Why not last week? The old woman looked at her steadily. Because last week I did not know you spoke Italian. Now I do. Now I know. The whole town knows. Cordelia Blackwood Wheeler has been telling everyone who will listen that the new Callahan bride is a Catholic Italian witch, which means Silas knows too, which means you do not have much time. Adeline rode back to the ranch in silence, the wooden box pressing against her hip with every step of the horse. Holt did not ask what had happened. Holt did not need to. The next 3 days, Adeline did not open the box. She could not. Because the brothers were in and out of the house. Because Hattie noticed everything. Because Rourke walked past her bedroom door on his way to bed, and she could hear him pause sometimes, just for a breath, then move on. She kept the box wrapped in a flannel petticoat at the bottom of her trunk. She kept the folded paper with the Italian sentence inside her bodice. She kept the small book of Dante on the library shelf where it belonged. She kept her face calm. She kept her hands busy. She made bread. She mended shirts. She read to Wren at bedtime. She let Posey sit beside her without comment. She helped Hattie scrub the floors. She fed the chickens. She fed the dogs. She did everything a wife was supposed to do. And every night she lay awake and thought about what could possibly be in a wooden box small enough to fit inside a coat pocket. On the 4th night the dogs barked. She remembered Hattie's rule. Stay in bed. Do not go to the window. She broke the rule because she heard hooves, not 1 horse, 3, maybe 4, not Callahan horses. The Callahan horses she had learned to recognize. These were different, heavier, slower, loaded. She crawled to the window. She kept herself below the sill. She lifted just enough of the curtain to see. 3 men on horseback at the edge of the yard. Lanterns lowered, faces hidden. One of them swung down, walked to the gate, hammered something onto the wood, swung back up. They turned and rode away into the trees. She waited until the dog stopped barking. Then she waited longer. Then she crept downstairs in her stocking feet. Rourke was already at the gate, in trousers and a flannel shirt. No coat, boots laced fast, a lantern in one hand, a pistol in the other. He was holding a piece of paper, a handbill. He read it. He folded it. He turned and walked back toward the house. He saw her on the porch. He stopped. You should be in bed. What did they leave? Nothing for you to worry about. What did they leave? He stood there in the lantern light. The shadows carved his face into hard places. He looked tired. He looked furious. He looked like a man holding back 10 years of something he had not allowed himself to feel. He held out the handbill. She took it. Wanted by the state of Montana for trespass and theft of mineral rights. Eamon Callahan, deceased, and all heirs of his estate, including Rourke Callahan, Holt Callahan, Briggs Callahan, and one Adeline Whitmore, recently of Boston, Massachusetts, reward for information leading to lawful forfeiture of said lands, $500, authorized by Silas Blackwood, Esquire, on behalf of Cold Creek Territorial Commission. Adeline read it twice. She looked up at Rourke. She did not feel afraid. She felt something colder than afraid. She felt focused. He named me. Yes, by name. He named me. He did. He is telling you he knows. He is telling me he is not done. She folded the handbill. She handed it back. Her hand did not shake. Rourke. Yes. I need to tell you something. Several things, but not tonight. Tomorrow early, before the brothers come down. Why not now? Because some of it I do not yet understand myself. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. He opened the kitchen door. He stood aside. She went in. She did not sleep that night. She sat at the edge of the bed with the wooden box on her lap, still wrapped in flannel, still unopened. She had decided. By dawn, she would have opened it. By dawn, she would know what Rose had hidden. By dawn, she would tell Rourke what she had found in his father's book. And then they would decide together what to do next. The candle burned down. The fire died. The eastern sky began to turn gray. Adeline took the wooden box. She set it on the bed in front of her. She unwound the flannel. She lifted the lid. Inside, a folded letter, a small key, a scrap of map, and one photograph. Tintype, faded, worn. She looked at the photograph first, because the photograph was on top. It was a picture of three men standing in front of a half-built cabin, the cabin she now lived in. Silver Pine Ridge, the cabin Eamon Callahan had built in 1860. The photograph had been taken before the second floor went on. The man on the left was Eamon Callahan. She had seen his portrait in the hallway. Tall, dark-haired, eyes like Rourke's. The man on the right was Vittorio Whitmore, her grandfather. She had only ever seen one daguerreotype of him. In her grandmother's locket, the face matched. The man in the middle was younger, maybe 17, maybe 18. Thin, long-faced, pale eyes. She did not know him. But there was something familiar in the bones of the face, something she had seen before. Recently, she could not place it. She turned the photograph over. On the back, in faded brown ink, Eamon, Vittorio, and the boy. Spring 1860. The boy. Not a name, the boy. Why no name? She set the photograph aside. She unfolded the letter. The letter was in Rose's handwriting. Adeline had seen Rose's hand once, on a recipe card in the kitchen drawer. She recognized the loops of the lowercase letters. The letter was short. To whoever finds this, if you are reading this, then I am dead. Do not grieve me. Find them instead. Eamon Callahan was murdered in 1875. I have spent the last year of my life finding proof. There is a third man. There was always a third man. He has lived in Cold Creek his whole life. He calls himself Silas Blackwood. He is not who he says he is. The key opens a box. The box is in Helena. The box is at the home of my sister Delphine. The box is under the hearthstone of her parlor fireplace. Inside the box is what Eamon trusted me with. What I did not have time to tell Rourke before they came for me. What I want the next woman to know. I am sorry I could not stay. I tried. Our Adeline read it twice, 3 times. Her hands shook now. Now there was no point pretending they did not. She picked up the small key. Brass, worn, heavy for its size. The key to a box hidden under a hearthstone in Helena. 2 days by train. In a house Adeline had never seen. In the care of a sister Adeline had never met. She picked up the scrap of map. It was a sketch of the streets of Helena. A small house circled. An address written along the bottom. 47 Lawrence Street. She put everything back into the wooden box. She closed the lid. She wrapped it in the flannel. She placed it back in her trunk. The eastern sky was pink now. The rooster in the yard had started his morning argument with the world. She washed her face in the basin. She dressed. She braided her hair. She went down to the kitchen. Rourke was already there, coffee in his hand, the handbill on the table in front of him. He looked up when she came in. "You said tomorrow morning." "Yes." She sat across from him. She poured her own coffee. She set the cup down without drinking. She folded her hands. She told him about the book of Dante, about the circled letters, about the sentence she had found under the stone of the hearth of her sister. She told him about Mrs. Iona Hartley, about the back room of the bakery, about the wooden box. She told him about Rose's letter, about the third man, about Silas Blackwood, about the key and the address. She did not tell him about the photograph yet. Not yet, because she did not yet know why the photograph had no name on it. When she finished, he sat very still. His coffee had gone cold. He had not touched it. He looked at her with eyes that were not quite the eyes of the man who had brought her up the mountain in the wagon. "You found all this in a week, less than a week. Why did you not come to me sooner?" "Because Rose said not to." He closed his eyes, just for a moment. When he opened them, they were wet at the edges, but he did not cry. Rourke Callahan did not cry. He simply stood up. He walked to the window. He looked out at the rising sun. "My father bought this land with a man named Vittorio Whitmore. Your grandfather. They split it down the middle. North half, south half. They drew up papers. The papers were filed in Helena, then a fire burned the Territorial Land Office in 1864. Convenient fire. All the original deeds gone, and after Vittorio died and your father died, the northern half, your half, was claimed by a man named Silas Blackwood, who produced papers no one could verify because the originals had burned. The new papers said Vittorio had sold the northern half to a Mr. Silas Blackwood in 1865 for $10. $10 for 7,000 acres. My father knew it was a lie. My father spent 10 years trying to prove it. Then my father died in a wagon accident, which was not an accident. No, the axle was sawn through. I found the marks myself. After they buried him, the undertaker let me look. Adeline closed her eyes, and Rose found something. Did she not? She found something. She would not tell me what. She said she had to be sure first. She said she would tell me on Sunday. The Saturday before that Sunday, she went to the church to talk to the minister. She never came home. They found her the next morning at the bottom of the cliff. 8 months pregnant. 8 months. He was silent for a long time. The sun came up over the eastern peaks. The kitchen filled with that thin, clear morning light that made every shadow sharper. "Adeline." "Yes, I cannot ask you to go to Helena. You did not ask. I am going. Silas knows your name now. Then he will be expecting me to run east, not west. Helena is north. Then he will not be expecting that either." He looked at her. He looked at her for a long time. Then he did something he had not done before. He came around the table. He knelt beside her chair. He took both her hands in his. His hands were warm and rough and steady. "You have been here 10 days. Yes, you have done more for this family in 10 days than anyone has done in 10 years. You have not yet allowed me to do anything." He almost smiled. The corner of his mouth moved, just a quarter of an inch. "Then allow me to ask now. Stay. Help us find this. Help us finish it. When it is done, you may go. With money, with a deed, with anything you want, or you may stay. With me, as whatever you wish to be." She looked at him, the morning sun on his face, the scar that ran from his eyebrow to his cheek, the gray storm of his eyes, the way his hands were holding hers as if she might disappear if he let go. "I will stay until it is done. Then we will see." He nodded. Once. That was enough. He let go of her hands. He stood. He went to the stove and poured fresh coffee. He set the cup in front of her. "Drink. It is going to be a long week." She drank. That afternoon, a letter came from Boston. The mail rider knocked at the back door. He was paid in coffee and a slice of pie. He handed Hattie 3 letters. Hattie handed them to Adeline. One was the doctor in Boston confirming that the latest payment from the Callahan account had been received. Nana Margaret had been moved to a private room. New medicine had arrived from New York. The doctor was hopeful. One was a bill for shipping. The third was in her grandmother's handwriting. Adeline took it upstairs to her bedroom. She closed the door. She sat by the window. The afternoon sun slanted across the floor. She broke the seal. Mia carissima Adeline. The letter was in Italian, of course it was. Nana Margaret had never trusted any language but her own. Adeline could hear her grandmother's voice through the words as if Nana were sitting beside her on the bed. My dearest Adeline, if you are reading this, then I have either died or I am close to dying. Either way, the doctor has told me to put my house in order. There are things in my house that I have not put in order in 20 years. I am putting them in order now. The man you have married, Rourke Callahan, he is the son of Eamon Callahan. Eamon Callahan saved your grandfather's life at Gettysburg in the summer of 1863. They were not just friends. They were brothers in everything but blood. They invested in land in Montana together. They were going to bring their families west when their children were old enough. They were not the only ones in that partnership. There was a third man. Listen carefully, Adeline, because this is the part I have never told anyone. Not your father, not your mother, not even your grandfather knew. I learned it after he was already dead. Before Eamon married his Anne, before he ever met her, he had a love affair with a woman named Mary Brennan. Mary was Irish. Mary was already promised to another man. The other man was older. The other man was rich. Mary went through with her marriage to that older man because her family would have been ruined otherwise. But Mary was already with child by the time she married him. The child was Eamon's. The child was a boy. The husband never knew. Mary never told. The boy grew up thinking the older man was his father. The older man died when the boy was 12. The boy went looking for what he believed was his inheritance. There was almost nothing left. The older man had been a poor manager. The estate was in ruins. The boy went looking for his real father, because Mary on her deathbed had told him. Mary had told him about Eamon. Mary had told him Eamon owed her something. Mary had told her son he was a Callahan by blood, even if not by name. The boy was 16 by then. He went west. He found his way to Montana. He found Eamon. He demanded to be acknowledged. Eamon refused. Because Eamon was already married. Because Eamon had Anne. Because Eamon had Rourke. Because acknowledging the boy would have destroyed 3 lives to fix one. But Eamon felt guilty. Eamon offered the boy a position, money, a start. Eamon offered the boy a place in the partnership, a share of the Montana land. Your grandfather Vittorio met the boy. Your grandfather did not like the boy. Your grandfather wrote to me about the boy in 1864. Your grandfather said the boy had eyes that did not warm. The boy had hands that took things without asking. The boy had a way of standing in a room as if he were waiting to take everything in it. Your grandfather told Eamon, the boy is dangerous. The boy will betray you. Do not give him the share. Eamon did not listen. Eamon gave the boy the share. 5 years later, your grandfather was dead. 4 months after that, your father was dead. 10 years after that, Eamon was dead. The boy is now a man. The boy now calls himself Silas Blackwood. Adeline, he is the third man. He is the third man in the partnership. He killed all of them because he wanted what they would not give him willingly. The full inheritance, the whole of the Callahan name, the whole of the land. Eamon never told Rourke. Eamon was ashamed. Eamon thought he could fix it himself before he died. Eamon was wrong. I have kept this secret for 20 years waiting to know who to give it to. Now I know. The new Mrs. Callahan is my own granddaughter. The circle is closing. There is one more thing. Eamon wrote to your grandfather one last time, 3 months before Eamon died. The letter said, Vittorio, I have changed my mind. I am bringing the boy home. I am acknowledging him. I am giving him the name. I have written to him. He will come for Christmas." The boy never received that letter. Silas never knew that his father had decided to claim him. Amon's letter was intercepted, by whom we do not know. Perhaps by Silas himself. Perhaps by someone working for him. Perhaps it simply got lost in the mail. Amon was murdered before he could send a second letter. Adeline, if you are with the Callahan family now, tell Rourke. Tell him the man who killed his father is his brother. Tell him the man who killed your grandfather and your father is family. Tell him too that Amon was bringing the boy home. Some men will kill you for refusing to acknowledge them. The worst part of this whole story is that Amon was finally going to. My love is with you always. Your Nana. P.S. The proof of all this is in a metal box that belonged to your grandfather. He hid it the night before he died. I never found it. He told me only that he had given the key to his closest friend. He did not say which friend. I have wondered for 20 years. I have wondered if the key went to Amon. I have wondered if Amon hid it with Rose. Adeline lowered the letter to her lap. The afternoon light had moved across the floor. The room was warmer now. The fire had burned down to coals. The dogs were barking again in the yard, but more cheerfully this time. Probably a deer at the tree line. She did not move for a long time. She thought about the photograph in the wooden box. She thought about the unnamed boy standing between Amon Callahan and Victoria Whitmore. She thought about the bones of his face, about how the bones had been familiar, about where she had seen them recently. She had seen them on the porch of the church in Cold Creek, on the face of Cordelia Blackwood Wheeler. The same long jaw, the same pale eyes, the same way of standing as if waiting to take a thing. Silas Blackwood and Cordelia Blackwood Wheeler, brother and sister, both Brennan by birth, both Callahan by blood, and not one of them with a legal right to call themselves anything. She folded the letter. She slid it into the wooden box on top of Rose's letter. She closed the lid. She walked downstairs in her stocking feet because she did not trust herself to put on shoes without crying. She found Rourke in the barn brushing down his horse. She held out her grandmother's letter without speaking. He took it. He read it. He read it again. He sat down very slowly on a milking stool. He put his head in his hands. She did not speak. He did not speak. The barn smelled of hay and leather and warm horse. A pigeon moved somewhere in the rafters. Outside, the dog settled down again. When he finally looked up, his face was a face she had not seen before. Not grief, not fury. Something in between. Something older than both. My brother. Half, by blood, killed my father, yes. Killed your grandfather, your father, yes. Killed Rose, yes. And tried to make himself my father's heir. Yes. He was quiet. He stood up slowly. He went to the saddle wall. He took down his rifle. He checked the action. He set the rifle back on its peg. Not yet, he said. To himself more than to her. Not yet. What do we do? He turned, he looked at her. The man who had brought her up the mountain. The man who had knelt beside her chair that morning. The man who had just learned that his entire life had a footnote written in his father's hand and never sent. We go to Helena, you and I. We open Rose's box. We find the proof. We bring it back. We give it to the federal marshal in Helena before we leave. We do not give it to anyone in Cold Creek. We trust no one in this town except the people in this barn. When? Tomorrow. First light. She nodded. He took a step toward her, then another. He stopped just close enough to touch. He did not touch. Adeline. Yes, I have not said this, so I am saying it. You did not have to come west. You did not have to stay. You did not have to find any of this. I did have to. Why? She thought about it. She gave him the honest answer. Because no one ever asked me to do anything important before. And once you ask, you cannot unask. And once I knew, I could not unknow. He looked at her, the way he had looked at her the night she had spoken Italian in the wagon, as if he were seeing her for the first time. Then he did touch her, just his hand on her cheek, just for a moment. Tomorrow, he said. Tomorrow. She went back to the house. She found Posey at the kitchen table coloring with a stub of charcoal on a torn piece of newspaper. Posey looked up at her. Posey did not smile. Posey never smiled. But Posey held out the drawing. It was a stick figure picture of a tall man with a hat, a shorter man with a hat, another man with a hat, a small girl, a smaller boy, and a woman with long dark hair standing in the middle. Posey had written one word at the bottom, in careful, uneven 6-year-old letters. Family. Adeline pressed the picture to her chest. She crouched down. She kissed the top of Posey's head. She did not trust herself to speak. Posey went back to her drawing, as if nothing important had happened. That evening Hattie made stew. The brothers came in from the cold one by one, Holt with snow in his hair, Briggs with his hat in his hand and his eyes on Adeline. He had seen the handbill on the gate that morning. He had read his name on it. He nodded to her across the table, the same nod he had given her the morning after she had heard him weeping, the nod that said, "I see you." After supper, Rourke told his brothers about Silas, about the letter, about Helena. Holt set his spoon down, slowly. "He is our brother. Half, all the same." "Yes." Briggs said nothing for a long time. Then he said, "I am coming with you to Helena." "No," Rourke said. "I need you here. The ranch, the children, Hattie, then Holt. Holt goes with me as far as the train. Then he comes back. I want a man with Adeline, but I want 2 men with the house. If something happens at the house while we are gone, there will be nothing to come back to." Briggs nodded. "Once hard, Rourke, yes. He is not getting out of this alive. I know, and if it comes to it, I want first shot. You will not get first shot." "I will." "Then second." Granted. Adeline watched them. 3 brothers around a kitchen table. 3 brothers learning in one evening that they had a fourth, and that the fourth had killed their father. She had grown up alone. She had not had brothers. She had not had sisters. She had not understood until that moment what brothers were for. Brothers were for moments like this, when a man learned that the world was crueler than he had thought, and his brothers stayed at the table with him until he could stand up again. She rose, she gathered the dishes, she brought them to the sink. Hattie was there already. Hattie took the dishes from her hand. Hattie looked at her with old, soft eyes. "You are good for him. I have done nothing. You came back. I never left." Rose left, without meaning to. "He has been waiting 2 years for someone to come back. You came back." Adeline did not know what to say, so she did the only thing she could think of. She put her arms around the old woman who smelled of bread and clean linen and rosemary. Hattie was startled. Then Hattie did not move. Then Hattie patted her back. 3 small pats. Then let go. "Bed," Hattie said. "Tomorrow is the train." That night Adeline did not sleep. She did not even try. She packed a small leather valise, 2 changes of clothes, the wooden box, the book of Dante, her grandmother's letter folded inside the book. The rifle stayed by her door. She added one thing she had not packed in Boston, the picture Posey had drawn, folded carefully, slipped into the lining. At 3 in the morning, she heard footsteps in the hallway. She thought it was Briggs again, going to Rose's room. It was not. The footsteps stopped outside her door. They stopped for a long time. Then they moved on. She lay in bed. She watched the moonlight cross the floor. She thought about all the things she did not yet know. About Helena. About the metal box under the hearthstone. About Silas Blackwood and Cordelia Blackwood Wheeler. and what they would do when they realized she was gone. She thought about Rourke, about the way he had touched her cheek, about the way he had said her name in the barn, about the man he had been before Rose died, about the man he might be again, if she helped him. She thought about Nana Margaret, about the letter, about 20 years of silence, about a woman who had carried a secret long enough to give it to the only person who could finish it. And she thought, as the eastern sky began to gray, as the rooster began to argue with the world, that she had been wrong about something. She had thought she was the woman being rescued. She was not. She was the woman who was going to do the rescuing. By dawn, she was dressed. By dawn, she was on the porch. By dawn, the wagon was loaded. The brothers stood in the yard in 3 different versions of the same expression. Holt holding the reins, Briggs with his rifle across his arm, Rourke beside her, his hat in his hand, his eyes on the road that led down out of the mountains toward Cold Creek and the morning train to Helena. The snow began to fall, lightly at first, the sort of snow that did not stick. She climbed up onto the wagon bench. Rourke climbed up beside her. The wagon turned. The mountains watched them go. And on the south end of Cold Creek, in a fine house with green shutters and a fresh coat of paint, Silas Blackwood was already awake. He was sitting at his desk. He was reading a telegram from a man he had paid to watch the Callahan Ranch. The telegram said, "Bride and oldest brother left at first light. Bound for the station. 2 valises. Traveling west." Silas read it once. He stood. He buckled on his gun belt. He called for his horse to be saddled. He did not bother with breakfast. The train pulled out of Cold Creek at 6:47 in the morning. Adeline sat by the window. Rourke sat across from her. Their valises were on the rack above their heads. The wooden box was inside her coat. The book of Dante was inside her valise. The rifle was checked into the baggage car because the conductor did not allow rifles in the passenger cars unless the passenger was a federal marshal. Holt had stood on the platform until the train turned the bend. Then he was gone. The train rocked. The snow drifted past the windows. The car smelled of coal smoke and damp wool. Adeline did not speak for the first hour. She was watching the platform behind them in her mind, trying to remember every face, every coat, every set of eyes that had been on her as she boarded, because she had felt them. The eyes, 3 men at least, maybe 4. One in a dark wool coat near the freight office. One smoking a cigar by the bench. One she had not seen but had felt the way a deer feels a hunter behind a tree. Rourke had felt them too. She could tell. He had not lowered the brim of his hat. He had not turned his back to the platform. He had not let her stand alone for 1 second. He was not lowering it now. Not even on the train. His hat was pulled low. His coat was open just enough that she could see the butt of the pistol at his hip. His eyes moved every few seconds. Door, window, door, aisle, door. You are wearing me out just watching you. Then close your eyes. I cannot close my eyes. Why? Because if I close my eyes, I will think. He almost smiled, just the corner of his mouth. He looked down at his hands. Then he reached across the small wooden table between them and put one hand over hers. He did not squeeze, he just rested it there. Heavy, warm, steady. You should think. Just not yet. How long is the ride? 6 hours, maybe 7. Depends on the weather. And then we go to your sister-in-law's house. We open the box. We find what we find. We go to the federal marshal. We come home. You make it sound simple. It is not simple. I know. He took his hand back. The cold rushed back into hers. She did not show it on her face, but she missed the weight. Helena had grown up around the gold strike of 1864. By 1886, it was not the rough mining camp it had been. It had wide streets, brick buildings, a new opera house, gas lamps, 3 hotels, a territorial capitol building going up on a hill, trees lining the avenues, telegraph wires, the Northern Pacific running through. It was a real city now. Almost a city. The train pulled into the station at 4 in the afternoon. The sky was already turning toward dusk. The snow had stopped. The air smelled of coal and pine and roasting chestnuts. Rourke handed her down from the train. He retrieved the rifle from the baggage car. He tucked it under his coat like a man who had done it many times before. He held her elbow as they crossed the platform. Not tightly, just enough. "We need a cab." "Yes." "Not the first one in line." "Why?" "Because the first one is the one that has been waiting longest. The one that has been told to be there." He took the third cab. The driver was a thin black man with white in his beard and kind eyes. Rourke gave him the address. 47 Lawrence Street. The driver took them through the city, slowly, past the new buildings, past the old false fronts, past a Catholic church and a Methodist church and a small synagogue. Helena was many things at once. It surprised Adeline. She had expected something smaller, rougher. Not this. The cab stopped in front of a narrow two-story house, painted yellow with white shutters. There was a small front garden under the snow, a wreath on the door, a lamp burning in the front window. "Wait here," Rourke said to the driver. The driver nodded. He did not ask questions. He had the look of a man who never asked questions. They knocked. The door opened almost immediately, as if Delphine had been waiting just inside. She had red hair, the same red hair as the woman in the photograph in the back room of the Cold Creek Bakery. The same red hair as Rose Callahan. She wore a black morning dress with a flour-dusted apron over it. She had a smear of butter on her left cheek. She looked at Rourke. She looked at Adeline. She looked back at Rourke. "It is about time." "Mrs. Hartley." "Delphine." "Get in! Get in!" "The neighbors are not blind." She pulled them inside. She shut the door. She drove the bolt. She turned and stood with her back to the door and looked at Adeline. "You are the new one." "Yes." "You speak the old tongue." "Yes." Rose told me. 2 days before she died, she told me there would be one who could read what she left. I have been waiting 2 years and 3 months. She crossed herself, quickly, Italian style. Rourke noticed. He did not comment. "The bakery is closed for the day. We have time." She led them through the narrow hall, into a small parlor. The parlor had a brick hearth in the center of one wall. A fire was crackling in it, a worn rag rug on the floor, 2 old armchairs, a spinning wheel in the corner that looked decorative more than functional, the hearthstone, the middle one, the one in front. "I have never moved it." Rose said, "Do not move it until they come." "I have not moved it. I have looked at it for 2 years. I have not moved it." She put her hand on her chest as she spoke, as if to keep her heart inside. Rourke knelt down by the hearth. He looked at the stones. The center stone was the size of 2 large books laid side by side. The mortar around it was old, but not the original mortar. It had been replaced. Whoever had replaced it had done it carefully. He took a small iron pry bar from inside his coat. He had brought it for exactly this. He worked the bar around the edges. The mortar came up in small chunks. He worked patiently. He did not rush. The stone came up after 7 or 8 minutes. Underneath, a hollow space, lined with old oilcloth, and inside the hollow space, a metal box, black tin, banded with iron, about the size of a large family Bible. Rourke lifted it out. He set it on the hearth. He looked at Adeline. She took the small brass key from the wooden box inside her coat. She handed it to him. He fitted it into the lock. It turned with a soft click. He opened the lid. The first thing on top was a leather portfolio, brown, tied with a black ribbon. Rourke lifted it out. Underneath was a thick stack of papers. Underneath that, an envelope sealed with red wax. Underneath that, a small canvas pouch. Heavy, filled with something hard. Adeline did not yet know what. He untied the portfolio. Inside, 3 documents: the original deeds, filed with the Territorial Land Office, signed in 1860, Eamon Callahan, Vittorio Whitmore, and below their names a third signature. The third signature read Silas Brennan, not Blackwood, Brennan, the same hand, the same letter forms, but a different name. Rourke stared at it. He used his real name when he signed the deed. He had to, Adeline said. If he did not, the signature could not be matched later. He needed his name on it, because the whole point was to inherit. Then why does he go by Blackwood now? Because after Eamon died, after my grandfather died, anyone who knew the third name was dead. He killed his way into a new name. Blackwood was easier. Blackwood had no history. Blackwood could be anything he wanted. Rourke set the deeds aside. He picked up the stack of papers underneath. Letters, dozens of them, some sealed, some opened, some folded so often the creases had worn through. They were all in Eamon Callahan's hand, all addressed to one person, Master Silas Brennan, in care of Mary Brennan, New Orleans, Louisiana. Adeline picked up the top letter, the most recent. The date was 3 months before Eamon died. She read it aloud, softly, so Delphine could hear too. My boy, I have been a coward. I have been a coward since the day you came to me, and I refused to know you. Your mother on her deathbed told you the truth. The truth has waited too long for me to confirm. I confirm it now. You are my son. You are a Callahan. I have written this in my will. I have written it in my journal. I have written it to Vittorio. I have written it to my wife who is at peace with this. Come for Christmas. Come to Silver Pine. I will introduce you to your half-brother. He is a hard young man, but he is honest, and he will accept you. Your sister Cordelia will be welcome as well if she will come. I have made a place for both of you. Forgive me if you can. I will spend the rest of my life trying to deserve it. Your father, Eamon. Adeline lowered the letter. The fire crackled. Delphine had put her hand over her mouth. Rourke had gone very still. This letter was never sent. No, he never knew. No. Rourke took the letter from her hand. He read it himself. Slowly, he read it twice. Then he folded it, carefully, with shaking hands. He placed it back on the stack. All of these are letters Eamon never sent, or letters Silas never received. Look at the seals on the older ones. They were opened, resealed badly. Someone read them all. Then Silas was told what to think of them. Mary Brennan, his mother. Yes, she read them all. She kept what she wanted him to know. She hid the rest. Until she died. By the time she died, Silas already hated. By the time he came west, he was looking for a man to kill, not a father to find. Rourke put his hands over his eyes for a moment. Just a moment, then he lowered them. He never knew. My father was going to bring him home. He died not knowing. Yes, and he killed our father because he thought our father had rejected him. Yes, and our father had not rejected him. Our father had decided to claim him. Yes. Rourke looked at the fire. The flames moved across his face. He did not cry, but something in him aged. Just then, in that small parlor, with a kind woman in a flour-dusted apron watching from the doorway, Adeline picked up the envelope sealed with red wax. She broke the seal. Inside, a single piece of paper. Rose Callahan's handwriting again. She had numbered the page, 1 of 1, a summary. For whoever opened the box and could not read everything. To my dear Rourke, if this finds you, it means I did not finish what I started. The metal box contains the original deeds your father and Vittorio Whitmore filed in 1860. They prove that Silas Blackwood, whose real name is Silas Brennan, has no right to the northern half of the ranch. He forged the 1865 deed of sale. He used his real name on the original. He used his false name on the forgery. The signatures will not match a real Vittorio Whitmore sample. Such a sample exists. Vittorio's last letter to your father is among the letters in this box. The handwriting will not match. A federal handwriting examiner will see it in 5 minutes. The metal box also contains your father's letter to his son, whom your father intended to claim. Silas Brennan never read that letter. Silas Brennan does not know your father changed his mind. I beg you to use the deeds to expose him. Do not tell him about the letter. He does not deserve to know. Let him die believing your father rejected him to the end. He killed 3 men and a woman because he believed it. Let it be the last thing he believes. Forgive me for not telling you sooner. I was waiting until I had all of it. By the time I had all of it, I was being followed. I gave the box to Delphine. I left signs in your father's book. I prayed someone would come. I love you. Take care of the children. Find a good woman, the Italian girl. If she comes, trust her. Our Adeline read the last lines again. The Italian girl. If she comes, trust her. Rose had known, somehow, 2 years before Adeline had ever heard the Callahan name. Rose had known there would be an Italian girl. Rose had known she would have to be trusted. Adeline did not understand how. She did not have to understand. She only had to be worthy of it. She folded the letter. She gave it to Rourke. He took it without looking. He was looking at the fire. The canvas pouch was last. She picked it up. It was heavier than she expected. She loosened the drawstring. She tipped the contents into her palm. Gold coins, 12 of them, old, heavy, stamped with a date she did not recognize. And beneath them, a second key, larger than the first. Iron, not brass. What does the second key open? Delphine spoke from the doorway, quietly. The county clerk's safe, in Cold Creek. The clerk is paid by Silas, but there is a second copy of the deeds locked in the safe by territorial law. Eamon was on the county board the year the originals burned. Eamon made sure a second copy was made. He had a key. The key disappeared after he died. Until now. Rourke looked up. Rose had it the whole time. Yes, and she did not tell me. She did not have time. She had it for 1 week before she died. Rourke stood up. He looked older than he had looked an hour ago. He looked angrier than Adeline had ever seen him, but also calmer, because anger that has a direction is not the same thing as anger without one. Delphine, where is the federal marshal's office? 2 blocks down Lawrence. Turn left on 6th Avenue. 3 doors past the courthouse. Is Marshal Dawson there now? I think he is. Yes. The boy from the bakery brings him bread every morning at 6. He was there this morning. Then we go now. Together. All of us. With the box. With everything in it. Now. Yes. She did not argue. She wiped her hands on her apron. She took down her shawl from the hook by the door. She put it around her shoulders. The 3 of them walked out into the Helena dusk. The lamplighter was working his way up the street. The gas lamps came on one by one. Adeline could see her breath. She could see Rourke's breath. She could see the steam coming off the back of the horses tied at the rail across the street. She did not see the man until he stepped out from behind a wagon. He stepped out maybe 20 feet ahead of them. He was wearing a long black coat, a black hat. He had a pistol in his hand. He was smiling. Mrs. Callahan. Rourke moved before she could speak. He moved her behind him. The metal box was under Rourke's left arm. The pistol was in his right hand. He had drawn it in one motion. She had not seen the motion. Step away from her. I am not close to her. You are too close to her. I just want to talk. Then talk from there. The man tilted his head. He was in his early 40s. Pale eyes, long jaw. The same long jaw Adeline had seen on Cordelia Blackwood Wheeler in the Cold Creek churchyard. the same long jaw she had seen in the photograph of the unnamed boy. Silas Blackwood, or Silas Brennan. He had ridden a faster horse than the train. He had taken a shortcut through the pass that the Northern Pacific did not take. He had been in Helena since noon. He had been waiting in the alley behind Delphine's house. You took something that belongs to me. Nothing in that box belongs to you. Everything in that box belongs to me. The land, the name, the history, all of it was supposed to be mine. Was it? Or was it stolen? Stolen. Yes, stolen from me. By your father. By her grandfather. They built a partnership on a promise. They forgot the promise the moment it was inconvenient. They offered you a share. You took it. Then you killed them. They were going to take it back. I saw the letters. My mother showed me he was going to take it back. He said so in writing. Adeline stepped out from behind Rourke. She did not mean to. Her body did it before her mind had finished the thought. He was not. Silas's eyes shifted to her. The smile faltered. Just a flicker. What? He was not going to take it back. He was going to claim you. Eamon Callahan wrote to you 3 months before he died. He told you he was sorry. He told you he had been a coward. He told you to come for Christmas, to Silver Pine. He said he would introduce you to your brother. He said your sister was welcome too. Lies. It is in the box, right now, under my husband's arm. The letter, sealed, unopened, addressed to Master Silas Brennan in care of Mary Brennan, New Orleans, Louisiana. Silas did not move. The hand holding the pistol did not move, but something in his face moved. A small thing, a shift. You are lying. I am not. My mother would have given me that letter. Your mother had been keeping the letters from you for years. He had written you for years. She kept them all. She read them. She decided what you would know. She wanted you to hate him. Hate was easier for her than admitting that the man she had loved was finally going to acknowledge her son. Lies. I have the letters. He looked at the box under Rourke's arm. He looked at Adeline. He looked at Rourke. His hand began to shake. Not the gun hand, the other one, the empty one, as if his body was breaking down in some place she could not see. Show me. No, Rourke said. Not here. Not at the end of a pistol. You will see them in a courtroom, with the marshal in the room, read by a judge. You will see them then. Show me now. No. Silas raised the pistol. He pointed it not at Rourke, but at Adeline. Show me now or I shoot her. Rourke did not move. His hand did not waver. But his voice when he spoke was a thing Adeline had not heard before. A low thing, a thing carved out of bedrock. If you so much as cock that hammer, I will put 4 bullets in you before you can pull the trigger. I do not miss at this distance. And brother or not, you killed our father. You killed her grandfather. You killed her father. You killed my wife, and you killed my child. There is not enough mercy in me to save you. He was my father too. He was. And he was going to tell you so. And you killed him before he could. Silas's hand was shaking harder now. The pistol shook with it. The barrel wavered. From Adeline to Rourke and back. He had spent 30 years building a life on a story about a father who would never claim him, a story about a partnership that had cheated him, a story about a half-brother who deserved to lose what Silas should have had. The story had given him the energy to kill 4 people. The story had just collapsed under him. He did not know what to do without it. That was when Marshal Elijah Dawson came around the corner. He came around the corner with 2 deputies. They had heard voices. They had recognized one of the voices. They had drawn their pistols quietly. Silas Blackwood, lower the weapon. Silas did not turn. He kept the pistol on Adeline. Marshal Dawson, you should not be involved in this. I am involved. Lower the weapon. You do not understand. The Callahans took everything from me. I want what is mine. What is yours is a piece of rope. Lower the weapon. Silas did not lower the weapon. The deputy stepped to the sides, flanking. Adeline saw Rourke's eyes flick to them. Adeline saw Rourke's finger ease off the trigger by a fraction. He did not want to be the one who fired first. He wanted Silas to lower it. He wanted Silas alive, long enough to read the letter, but Silas was not lowering it. The pistol was on Adeline. Silas's pale eyes were on her too. His mouth was moving. He was muttering. Adeline could not hear the words, but she could see the shapes they made. He was talking to himself. He was talking to the version of his father he had built in his head for 30 years. That was when Adeline did the thing she did not plan to do. She turned to Rourke. She touched the metal box under his arm. He understood. He lowered it just enough. He opened the lid. She lifted out the top letter, the one she had read aloud in Delphine's parlor only an hour before. She stepped forward one pace. Silas. He looked at her. This is the letter. He wrote it 3 months before he died. He had decided. He had stopped being a coward. He was going to claim you. She unfolded the paper. Amon's letter. Listen. She read it. Quietly. The street had gone silent around them. The lamplighter had stopped at the next pole. The horses at the rail had gone still as if they understood. She read the letter from start to finish. By the time she reached the words, "Your father, Amon," Silas was not pointing the pistol at her anymore. The barrel had drifted. It was pointing at the ground between them. The hand holding it was shaking too hard to aim. His face was wet. He was not making a sound, but his face was wet. He could not finish the word. He was going to bring you home. He had a place for you. He had a place for your sister. He wrote the same to Cordelia. We have not yet read her letter, but it is in the box too. Silas dropped the pistol. It hit the wooden boards of the sidewalk and went off. The bullet went into the side of a horse trough. Water began to dribble out of the bullet hole. Marshal Dawson stepped forward. Quickly, carefully, he took Silas by the arms. Silas did not resist. He went down on his knees in the snow. He stayed there. His mother had taught him a lie. He had built a life on the lie. He had killed 4 people for the lie. And in a single minute, on a street in Helena, Montana, the lie had been taken from him. He had nothing left. Marshal Dawson glanced at Rourke. Rourke nodded. The marshal cuffed Silas's wrists behind his back. Silas did not fight. He did not look up. He was murmuring something. Adeline did not understand it. She thought it might be Italian. She thought it might be prayer. She did not move closer to find out. The trial was set for the 2nd week of March. Adeline did not stay in Helena for the whole trial. She came back for the verdict. The judge was a federal judge brought in from Bismarck. The jury was 12 men selected from 3 different counties because no Cold Creek jury could be trusted. The evidence was the metal box, every paper in it, every letter, every deed, every signature, every receipt for every payment Silas had ever made to a postmaster or a station master or a county clerk. A handwriting examiner from St. Louis confirmed in 5 minutes what Rose had predicted he would confirm in 5 minutes. The 1865 deed of sale was a forgery. The signature claiming to be Vittorio Whitmore's was not Vittorio Whitmore's hand. A doctor from Helena confirmed under oath that an axle showing tool marks on the inside of the iron rim had been sawn deliberately. The wagon that had killed Amon Callahan had been sabotaged. A young woman named Annie Pell, who had worked in Cordelia Blackwood Wheeler's house, testified that a few months before Rose's death, she had overheard Cordelia and Silas discussing what would have to be done about the Callahan wife. Cordelia was indicted as an accessory. She fled to St. Louis before they could arrest her. She was caught at a train station in Kansas City. She was extradited. Silas was found guilty on 4 counts of murder. He was sentenced to hang on the 24th of April, 1886. He asked for one thing before sentence was carried out. He asked to read the letter his father had written him. The judge allowed it. Silas read the letter alone in his cell. The deputy outside the door said later that Silas did not weep again. He had wept all the weeping out of himself on the street in Helena. He simply read the letter. He folded it. He gave it back to the deputy. He sat on the cot. He waited. He went to the gallows the morning of the 24th without speaking. He did not look at Rourke, who was in the witnessing crowd. He did not look at Adeline, who was not. She had not gone. She did not want to see it. She had told Rourke. Rourke had understood. Some men needed to see the door close. Some women did not. Adeline was one of the women who did not. That night, Rourke came home to Silver Pine on the late train. He came up the road in the wagon. Briggs was waiting at the gate with a lantern. Holt was on the porch with Wren asleep on his shoulder. Hattie had soup on the stove. Rourke walked into the kitchen. He did not say anything. Adeline stood up from the table. She walked over to him. She put her arms around his waist. She put her head against his chest. He held her. He did not say anything. He did not need to. They stood like that for a long time. Long enough for the soup to start to scorch. Long enough for Hattie to lift the pot off the stove without comment. Long enough for the children's clock in the hall to chime 8. Long enough that whatever the door of Silas Blackwood's life had been holding back was finally on the other side of it. The wedding came in May. The first wedding had been a contract. 2 strangers in a Cold Creek church on a winter morning. A handshake afterward. A cold ride home. A closed door at the end of a hallway. This wedding was different. This wedding was held in the meadow at the top of Silver Pine. The meadow with the 2 graves. Rose's grave. The grave with no name. The 2 of them had been joined that spring by a 3rd grave. Adeline had carried it down the mountain from Helena with her. Not the body. The body was buried in a pauper's field outside the capital. But the name. The name had been carved on a 3rd stone and placed beside the other 2. Eamon Callahan would not have wanted his son to lie alone even in death. Adeline had said that to Rourke. Rourke had agreed. The 3rd stone read simply, Silas Brennan Callahan, 1843 to 1886. Son. Just that. Son. Cordelia, when her own trial concluded, was sentenced to 25 years in the territorial prison at Deer Lodge. She did not appeal. She wrote 1 letter to Rourke from prison. She did not ask for forgiveness. She asked only if her brother had read the letter from their father before he died. Rourke wrote back. He told her yes. He told her where the 3rd stone was. He did not invite her to write again. She did not. The minister at the May wedding was old Mr. Holloway, who had married Rourke to Rose 6 years before and had signed the contract paper between Rourke and Adeline that same winter. He had not approved of the winter contract. He approved of this one. He smiled the whole way through the ceremony, even when he forgot the last line of the vow and Hattie had to whisper it to him from the front row. Nana Margaret came. She had been too weak to travel in January. She had been getting steadily stronger since. The new medicine was working. The doctor in Boston was sending the new medicine by mail each month. The Callahan account was still paying for it. Nana had insisted on the train. She had brought a trunk. She had brought 2 trunks. She had brought a small leather suitcase full of recipes she said her granddaughter needed to learn before she was too old to teach them. Nana stood in the front row, her hand on Hattie's arm, her eyes wet but not crying. She had crossed an entire continent to see this. She was not going to cry through it. Posey carried flowers. Wren carried the rings on a small pillow Hattie had embroidered with 2 birds. Briggs walked Adeline down the aisle. He had asked for the honor. Rourke had agreed. Briggs cleared his throat 11 times during the short walk. He did not weep. But the morning Adeline had heard him weep in Rose's room had earned him a place in her family forever. Holt stood as best man. Rourke wore his father's coat. Adeline wore a dress made from a bolt of cream-colored wool that Delphine had sent up from Helena as a wedding gift. Hattie had sewn it. Posey had pinned the hem. The dress had a high collar and long sleeves and a single line of small mother-of-pearl buttons down the front. It was the most beautiful thing Adeline had ever worn. She felt unreal in it. She did not feel unreal when Rourke looked at her at the altar. She felt entirely real. The vows were short. Rourke had asked for them to be short. Adeline had agreed. Neither of them was good at standing in front of people. Both of them were better at standing in front of each other. Rourke spoke first. Adeline, I have been a hard man. I have been a closed man. I have been a man who did not believe he was allowed to want anything. You came up the mountain in January, and you did not ask my permission to be anything. You just were. In what you were saved, every one of us. I do not have flowery words. I never have. I will give you everything I have for the rest of my life. I will hold your hand at the end. I will stand at your grave when it comes. I promise. Then Adeline. Rourke, I came west to save my grandmother. I did not know I would also be saving myself. I did not know there was a piece of me I had not been allowed to use until you asked me to use it. You asked me to do something important. I did it, and I would do it again. And I will do whatever else needs doing for the rest of our lives. I promise. The minister pronounced them. The brothers cheered. The children cheered. Hattie cried. Nana cried, but quietly. The dogs in the yard barked. Far down in Cold Creek, a church bell rang for noon. It was not their church bell, but Hattie said afterward that she liked to think it was anyway. They walked down out of the meadow together. The mountains watch them go. The fade comes at the door of the house. Adeline is laughing. Wren is asleep on Rourke's shoulder. Posey is holding Adeline's hand. The brothers are already on the porch with cider. Hattie is at the door with the spring lambs underfoot. The sun is setting behind the western range. The light is pink. The light is gold. The door closes behind them. 5 years passed. The northern half of the ranch was returned to its legal owners by federal decree. Half to the Callahan family, half to Adeline. Adeline signed her half over to the joint estate the same week. She did not need it as her own. She had what she needed. The northern half grew well over the next years. The pasture supported more cattle than Amon had ever dreamed. The Callahan brothers used the new prosperity to build a school in Cold Creek. They used a portion of it to send a wagon train of supplies to a Cheyenne settlement that had lost 100 head of cattle to a hard winter. Hattie said it was the kind of spending Amon would have approved of. Hattie was usually right. Posey turned 10 in 1890. She read 3 languages by then. She wanted to be a doctor. Adeline did not laugh at her. Adeline said yes. Adeline said the world will need you. Adeline said we will find you a teacher. Wren turned 9. He still climbed onto Adeline's lap when no one was looking. He pretended he did not. Everyone knew he did. Nana Margaret lived another 2 years at Silver Pine. She passed on a quiet morning in March with Adeline holding her hand. She was buried on the meadow with the other Callahan graves. Adeline had asked Rourke if Nana could lie there, even though she was a Whitmore by name. Rourke had said quietly that there were no names on the mountain that mattered to him, only people. A daughter was born in the summer of 1887. Margaret Rose. They called her May for short. She had her mother's eyes. She had her father's stubbornness. She walked at 8 months. She did not stop walking after that. A son followed in 1889. They named him Vittorio. They called him Vito. He was quiet like his father. He read like his mother. He climbed trees like nobody had ever taught him to. By 3, he was scaling the woodpile and laughing. Holt married a girl from a homestead 2 valleys over. Her name was Sarah Beecher. She had hair the color of wheat in late August, and a laugh you could hear from the next ridge. They built a smaller place a quarter-mile downstream from Silver Pine. They had 3 children of their own. Delphine sent wedding bread from Helena. Delphine never came back to Cold Creek. She said the town held too many ghosts. She wrote to Adeline once a month. She signed every letter your sister in name, if not in blood. Briggs never married. He stayed at Silver Pine. He worked the ranch. He raised the children with his brother and his sister-in-law. He went to Rose's grave once a year on the anniversary. He took flowers in summer. He took pine boughs in winter. He never spoke of her. He did not need to. The wooden box, Rose's box, sits on the mantel in the parlor at Silver Pine. It is empty now. The letters are with the courts. The deeds are filed in the territorial capital. The gold coins were given away. The keys are in a drawer. The box itself is empty. It is not really empty. It holds something Adeline cannot quite name. The memory of a woman she never met. The memory of a fall from a cliff that should not have happened. The memory of a sentence in Italian written in a margin of a book of poems. The memory of a winter when an Italian girl came west and did not let go. In the evenings when the children are asleep, Adeline still sits in the parlor sometimes with the book of Dante in her lap. She reads aloud, quietly, so as not to wake anyone. Sometimes Rourke comes in and sits with her without speaking. He listens. He does not understand all the words, but he understands the voice that says them. He has learned more Italian over 5 years than he ever thought he would. He says he learned because of May. He learned because of Vito. He says it was the children. Adeline knows it was not the children. She reads to him sometimes from the very last page. The line that Dante wrote at the end of all his journeying. The line that her grandfather underlined once. In an old book, long ago, L'amor che muove il sole e l'altre stelle. The love that moves the sun and the other stars. She reads it. He listens. Outside, the dogs settle into the night. The mountains stand watch as they always have. The fire burns down to coals. The house breathes around them. Somewhere in the high meadow, 3 stones stand together. Rose, the little one with no name, and Silas, a father and a mother, had a son. The son did not get the chance. The son's brother and the son's brother's wife paid a debt of name on his behalf. The wind moves across the meadow. The grass bends. The grass straightens. The story is over. The mountains keep telling it anyway.